Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Most people believe that they have a strategy problem. I don't believe that to be true. I don't think most people have a strategy problem. I think that what most people have is an execution problem. I think the truth here is pretty simple. Your life today is perfectly designed to create the results you're currently getting. I'm going to say that again. Your life today is perfectly designed to create the results you're currently getting. Not by intention for many people, but by system or by lack of a system. I think that's why the 4 disciplines of execution, 4DX, why this concept is so powerful, why the book was so good. And if you haven't read it yet, go pick it up. Because it's not just a business framework, which is, of course, the reason I love it so much. It's a framework for a better life. It's for your business, of course, but it's also for your relationships and your health. And all of them respond to the same inputs, which are clarity and focus, measurement, and accountability. So let's walk through these 4 disciplines the way a real operator in business and in life probably should go about doing it. So discipline number 1. Discipline number 1 is to focus on the wildly important. In the book, he talks about wildly important goals. In business, this means identifying the one goal that would move the needle the most in the next, call it 30 to 90 days. But here's the twist. You can't have one wildly important business goal and ignore everything else in your life. So you also have to have, in my opinion, a wildly important health goal and a wildly important relationship goal and a wildly important personal growth goal. See, most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because everything feels equally important. And when everything matters, nothing then matters. So I want you to ask yourself this week, in my business, what's the one thing that changes everything else? In my marriage or my key relationships, what's one investment that would make the biggest difference? For my body and health, what's one discipline that would move me the furthest? See, wildly important goals aren't just professional, they're life-changing when applied everywhere else. Okay? So discipline number 1 is focus on the wildly important. Discipline number 2, act on lead measures. Businesses have a tendency to obsess over lag measures, revenue, closings, profit, conversion. These are lag measures, not lead measures. You can't control lag. They're the output. You can only control your lead measures, which would be the input. Lead measures are the actions that create the outcomes. So in business, this might be calls made or conversations had, follow-up sent, offers delivered, content produced. These are all lead measures, but the same logic actually applies to your relationships. Lead measure in relationship, how about 10 minutes of undivided attention as an input? How about another lead measure like a daily check-in or a weekly date night with no phones or saying thank you or I appreciate you once a day? These are lead measures. Healthy relationships have lead measures too. And your health, no different. Maybe it's lead measure of 45 minutes of movement or a lead measure of 7 hours of sleep or a lead measure of a daily walk. Your life is built by inputs, not necessarily outcomes. Your life is built by inputs. So most people obsess about the scoreboard and they tend to ignore the plays. I think 4DX, 4 disciplines of execution, does a great job flipping that script. So this week, audit your life. What are the lead measures that guarantee the results that you want in every area of life? Now, discipline 3 is to keep a compelling scoreboard. In business, we all know why this matters. People play differently when the score is visible. But consider this in other areas of your life as well. What if your marriage had a scoreboard? Not a judgment scoreboard per se, but a commitment scoreboard. So for example, days this week with an intentional connection. Maybe daily micro moments that matter, or weekly planning or check-ins. Or what if you had a health scoreboard that said number of workouts or number of steps, ounces of water, grams of protein eaten? I think a visible scoreboard does one thing very, very powerfully. It tells the truth. Most people have a tendency to avoid the truth in the areas that matter most, which are business performance and health habits and relationship effort. So this week, I'm going to push you to build a simple scoreboard that answers, am I winning or losing in the areas that matter? Am I winning or losing in the areas that matter? Because this sort of clarity changes behavior. And then discipline number 4, the last discipline, create a cadence of accountability. See, this is where execution becomes real. Business owners have a tendency to understand this instinctively. Weekly accountability drives results. We've seen it. But imagine applying this same discipline to your life. So, for example, in business, you might say, what did I commit to last week? Did I do it? What's my commitment for next week? This would be a cadence of accountability. How about in a relationship, though? Maybe it's a 5-minute weekly check-in. Hey, what worked for us? What didn't work for us? What do you need from me next week? And in health, you could probably do some sort of personal review. Did I hit my lead measures? Where did I fall off or slip? What's the single commitment for the next 7 days? I think this is how the most elite of performers live. They're not emotional, they're not reactive, but they are operating with a cadence. They're operating rhythmically. Accountability turns intentions into outcomes. So as we wrap up, okay, this week I want you to choose a wildly important goal, at least in business or health or a key relationship. Then identify the 2 or 3 lead measures that move each one. Make a scoreboard around that, and then set a weekly 10 or 20-minute accountability cadence. Do that for 4 weeks. I challenge you to do it for 4 weeks. And I will bet everything in my pocket your entire life will look different just over the course of 4 weeks. Not because you necessarily changed anything, but because you finally executed on the few things that probably mattered most. That's all I have for you today. The No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.